The big game, one of the big games at least, is here. Game day here at Beaver Stadium in State College, Pennsylvania. I'm Tom Orr, here with Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Tony, it is that time. It is availability report time. This is an availability report that's filled with a little more drama than some have been. We went into the Oregon game saying, wow, boy, no one's hurt. Amazing. Can you believe it? And then since then, it has not been a case that no one is hurt. Several guys are hurt. Let's start, I think, Tony, with the good news. Lathan Ransom not appearing on your availability report. Ryan Day had said earlier in the week he thought he would be good to go. He is good to go. And this feels like, sometimes guys are available but don't play. This is one where if you're available, I'm assuming we're going to be seeing you out there pretty much the whole game. Yeah,
it sounds like he practiced well during the week, so I don't think you're going to be held out of this one after practicing well of any sort of concern. So he's good to go, practicing as you would expect from a veteran, and then you get him back, and they're going to need his ability to stop the run, ability to help cover Tyler Warren, ability to do everything that he does in terms of stuff in the backfield, coverage. Like, getting him back is very good for Ohio State, and it gets everybody back into their natural spots as well. Yeah,
you saw a great performance last week out of Caleb Downs when he was sort of not in his normal spot. I'm sure they were very happy. Jim Knowles, how many times have we heard him use the phrase safety-driven defense over the years? You've got Lathan Ransom, you've got Caleb Downs, you've got Jordan Hancock. In a game, we talked on the morning show about the fact that explosive plays, big plays, could be a real determinant in this, who wins this game in what should be a very close game. Having your three safeties, as they define them, feels like that could be a big, big piece of determining how this game ends up.
Yeah, it gives them different things they can do against Tyler Warren, their All-American tight end, and all three of those guys could be involved in defending him. You don't have to just put a linebacker on him or anything like that. I am very interested to see how much three linebackers they play, because that will likely eliminate Jordan Hancock from the situation, and getting Arvell Reese back from the suspension is key there. But getting those three safeties, having them back where they could say where they're natural. They're natural everywhere.
Yeah.
But where they've been all season, they can continue to do the different things, be activated, as Jim Knowles said, all of these guys. And you're facing two quarterbacks, so they also have to be aware of that as well. And however they plan to be activated, one guy may run, one guy may not. So you got to know who's there at all times.
Yeah, and you mentioned facing two quarterbacks. One of the pieces, we'll get to the rest of the Ohio State availability report in a minute, but on Friday, we don't have an official availability report from Penn State yet, but on Friday there were reports that Drew Aller is in fact good to go, so you can probably expect both Bo Pribula and Drew Aller to go for Penn State. That's going to present an interesting challenge. I don't know if Drew Aller is 100%, and if not, then maybe he's a little more one-dimensional. Bo Pribula but you think of Drew Aller as a passer and Bo Pribula as a runner. Bo Pribula was 11 for 13 last week against Wisconsin. He's pretty multidimensional. If you have him and you have Drew Aller, who's been solid for Penn State this year as a quarterback, that gives you almost two different offenses potentially to have to defend.
Yeah, it's not easy, and defensive coordinators hate quarterbacks that can run. They also hate quarterbacks that can throw pinpoint passes.
This one weird trick times two.
So now you've got to deal with both of those guys, and then, of course, deal with them when they're on the field together, because they've done that this season. So what have they built off of what they've done this season? What have they shown that they will now employ? Penn State will do some activating of their own with some of their the trickery that they've shown. So I am fascinated to see how that ends up. Ohio State's defense, all of the safeties and linebackers, everybody has to be disciplined in this one. Do your job. Don't get lost in the sauce.
And there's been a lot of talk about not getting distracted by the window dressing. Andy Kotelnicki, the Penn State offensive coordinator, he is a kitchen sink in all games kind of guy, so Lord only knows what he has saved up for a game this big. We saw last week offensive linemen going in motion, and Tyler Warren, the tight end, lining up at quarterback and lining up as an inline tight end and lining up split out and lining up as an H-back. And a little bit of anything and a little bit of everything. You could see just about anything there. One thing you will not see is Zen Michalski. Yeah. Zen Michalski, not a big surprise based on the way Ryan Day talked about it earlier in the week, but Zen Michalski is listed as out for this game. Ryan Day had sort of sounded vaguely hopeful earlier in the week, and then by Wednesday evening was saying, trending towards him not being able to play. He's officially listed as out for this game. A positive sign, though, he is not listed as out for the season. Yeah. So that's potentially good news in terms of the depth of the Ohio State offensive line. Now the question, of course, becomes, so now what? Because we looked at, it seems like, 15 different possible combinations of different guys at tackle, different guys at guard, what they might do. Okay, not having Zen Michalski, that takes at least a few of those combinations off the table. If you're Ryan Day and Justin Fry and Chip Kelly and you're looking at the guys they've got, what do you do?
Yeah, I think we do what we've been saying the last few days. You go with the most experienced lineup that you've got, and I think we all expect Donovan Jackson to kick out to left tackle. Carson Hinsman has been waiting in the wings. Ryan Day said he would be moving around this week in practice. I'm expecting that to be your left guard, Seth McLaughlin at center, Tegra Shabola at right guard, Josh Fry at right tackle. All of these guys have now started at least a half of a season, so you've got that going for you. And in this kind of environment, you need as much experience as you can get, but also just they've all played together before now, so you're not just plugging in the second team left tackle to try and work with the first team. You've got some guys that have spent time together and have played next to each other. You know, if it is Carson Hinsman, he has played next to Donovan Jackson before. You know, last year they were right next to each other. So if they're next to each other again in this one, they have an easier way of communicating. They know each other very, very well.
The rest of the availability report for Ohio State, no big surprises. We knew Will Kacmarek going to be out for a number of weeks. Again, not out for the season, but out for a while. He's somewhere in that murky gray area between day to day and out for the season. So week to week, month to month, whatever that looks like. Zen Michalski, we already talked about. Reece Stocksdale out, and TC Caffey and Josh Simmons both obviously out for the season. So on the whole, this is not a terrible availability report for Ohio State. You'd obviously love to have Zen Michalski. You'd obviously love to have Will Kacmarek back, but you knew one of those was not happening and one of those was not likely to happen. This is, as far as things go, not terrible news for Ohio State.
Yeah, none of the names on here are unexpected. So that's always the one that gets you. It's like, boom, Mayan Williams is on there this week. Like, how does that? Yeah. What happened? He was fine last week. So just having no new names, no unexpected names, I think is always good news.
And so now, what does this game come down to? Because it feels like Ryan Day talked about three things that it could, that could swing: winning the rushing battle, winning the turnover battle, winning the explosive plays battle. If you have to pick one of those, which is the thing that after the game we're talking about? I'll tell you what. If Ohio State wins, which of those are we talking about on the postgame show? And if Penn State wins, which of those are we talking about on the postgame show?
I think if Ohio State wins, you're more talking about explosive plays. I think that covers up everything else, because even with the turnover, you still got to do something with it unless you're pick-sixing it or returning a fumble for a touchdown. So I think for Ohio State, it's going to be the big plays. I do think Penn State turnovers would be huge for them, but then you still also, as I said, you've still got to punch it into the end zone. Just because you get the ball back is no guarantee. Now, it means that you're not going to give up any points there. You've taken the ball away, so that's good, but it's just a stalemate until you do something with it. Whereas the most effective thing, those home runs, if they can get them, whoever gets them, I would expect it to be Ohio State. If you're asking me which of those two, I expect Penn State to outrush Ohio State in this one, but I don't know that it's going to be like 180 yards to 40. I'm not expecting anything like that.
Well, and if Ohio State outrushes Penn State, does that kind of push this into they win unless something weird happens to territory?
Yeah, I think if Ohio State outrushes Penn State, which is not trending that way, so if they completely reverse the trend, then what else are they doing as well? Right. Because it feels like now you've got the momentum, and if you're running the ball well, you can do so many other things as well. And that just, if you're running the ball, then here come the big plays as well through the air.
And one other factor that's going to go into this that Ohio State has not faced a ton this year, they faced it out in Eugene, Oregon, and handled it reasonably well, all things considered, is a loud and hostile crowd. This is a much bigger crowd than they faced at Eugene. The Autzen Stadium is sort of designed to hold that noise in to a certain degree, and that was a close enough, dramatic enough game for the full 60 minutes that the crowd was never out of that game. It was a one-score game the whole time. This feels like we could be in for a similar game where it's close enough and low scoring enough that it's constantly a one-score game, or maybe someone's ahead by 10 for a minute and then someone comes back and answers. This feels like one where it's always a loud crowd here, it's always an involved crowd here, it's always an impactful crowd here. I'm certainly expecting much of the same on Saturday.
Yeah, it's a noon kick, but it's an Ohio State game.
Yeah.
So that kind of negates everything else for the fans. They're going to be here. I mean, we already saw the RVs in the tailgate lots. Things are already ramping up here. So I expect them to be full throat and loud as heck. And Ohio State, they're going to have to deal with it. The Oregon game we talked about as a night game, that was a 3:30 kick, local. So I expect things to be very, very loud unless Ohio State gets out to a good start. That's the only way to quiet things.
Well, yeah, and that's one of those areas where you hit a couple explosives and then it's not so loud when you get the ball back. You hit an explosive, you force a punt, and then it gets a little less rambunctious. If it's close and late, it is raucous in there. And we've been here through plenty of close and late games. The only time it was ever close in the second half and it was not loud was 2020, and that's because there was no one in there. That's the only exception. I go back to 2018. That was loud, late. Ohio State came back and won. 2022, it was loud, late. Ohio State came back and won. So it doesn't mean it's going to be the deciding factor, but it is certainly a complicating factor. Is there one Ohio State player that the Ohio State coaching staff, if they could just say, this one guy is going to have a great game, who is that guy? Because I feel like you could make a great argument for Jeremiah Smith. You could make a great argument for a guy who had a great game here 2 years ago, JT Tuimoloau. You could make a great argument for Caleb Downs. You could make a great argument for either the running backs, Will Howard. I mean, there are a million different ways this game could go. Who has the JT Tuimoloau game if the Ohio State coaching staff has its druthers? If you
can get a JT Tuimoloau game, then take that every day of the week. I would say Quinshon Judkins. His running style, the ability to get him on track, because we saw Will Howard have a great game at Oregon and they lost.
Yeah.
So if you're asking me somebody that would help control the game, that would be Quinshon Judkins. Now, all things being equal, give me the defensive end that intercepts the ball twice, forces a fumble, scores. I'll take that every single time over just about anything else.
Yeah, that is a difficult performance to duplicate. But if they can get it close, I think that's a good pick. Quinshon Judkins, another one where if Ohio State can run the ball and you hit a couple big plays in the run game, boy, that changes some of the dynamics around this game. How will it go? Well, we will all find out together starting at noon on Fox. We'll be back after the game with our full post-game show. Just go ahead and just keep a tab open on your computer or your phone right now, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Open that YouTube app right now. Go to the Buckeye Huddle page. We're going to have our full post-game coverage, player interviews, coach interviews, instant analysis, post-game Buckeye Weekly podcast. Man, oh man, is there going to be a lot to talk about, because one of these teams is going to be in tremendous shape for the college football playoffs. One of these teams is going to have a major, major dent in its resume and not a whole heck of a lot of time to make up for it moving forward. And boy, is there going to be some narrative around these two coaches one way or the other. A close game that comes down to one play is going to be a huge swing in one direction for one of these coaches and a huge swing in the other direction for one of these coaches. So going to be a lot to talk about after the game. So make sure you join us at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle, and of course as well at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That's where Tony, Kevin, and I cover the team. Mark covers recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus there, making you a smarter football fan, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We hope to see you there. That'll do it for now. We will talk to you guys after the game.